Tonight, gusty winds, thick dust and soaring temperatures hit parts of the Spencer Gulf. And one of Australia's most sought-after public speakers inspires audiences in the mid-north.
This is Southern Cross News with Abby Donaldson.
Good evening. Wild weather has battered parts of the Spencer Gulf with gusty winds and soaring temperatures. Along with thunderstorms and dust, it caused dangerous conditions for drivers and farmers across the region.
Roads shrouded in dust as wild winds lashed the Spencer Gulf.
God, this is crazy.
This video was taken at Cal this morning, and while clouds looked dark and grey today, they unfortunately didn't bring any rain. But there was plenty of spectacular lightning captured across the region. And according to the Bureau, we might need to get used to it as we head into summer.
Typical spring weather. It was very cold yesterday. Today is very windy and hot, and then tomorrow is looking cold again.
The warm and windy conditions had our region's emergency services on edge, and while the fire ban season won't start until November 1, they're urging everyone to take extra care.
Farmers and the general public, if you're wanting to use farm machinery or power tools, definitely work to the conditions, so you don't want to be working anywhere where you can potentially start a fire with an angle grinder.
While a cool change is expected over the weekend, the weather is expected to pack a punch again next week.
We've got high winds today, we're expecting high winds Monday, so if people are looking at burning off this weekend, to fully extinguish what they've lit up before we have the windy conditions Monday.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
The New South Wales Labor Party says there's been a blowout in triage waiting times at Broken Hill Hospital. A recent health report shows increases in the urgent and emergency categories.
Rising wait times, Labor says, shouldn't be happening.
More and more people arriving at emergency wards in regional hospitals are having to wait longer to get treatment.
A recent Bureau of Health scorecard of all New South Wales hospitals revealed the average waiting times have increased in every emergency and urgent triage category at Broken Hill Hospital. In the Triage 2 category, which includes chest pains or severe burns, the median wait time jumped by 2 minutes compared to last year. In Triage 3 cases, waiting times rose by 3 minutes.
Well, a government with the right priorities would be putting emergency wait times in regional hospitals ahead of spending on Sydney stadiums.
Despite the slight increase, the Broken Hill Hospital is still meeting the New South Wales averages for triage waiting times and in some cases beating them. In a statement to Southern Cross News, Hospital General Manager Ken Barnett said over 89% of patients left the emergency department within 4 hours of presentation, well above the state average of 74%. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Low-income earners in rural areas could receive a pay rise if a new campaign by the state union gains traction in federal politics. They're hoping to change the rules to allow workers to better bargain their wages.
A minimum wage of $36,500 for many hard-working South Aussies is not enough.
The wages that workers are earning are simply not keeping up with the cost of living pressures.
In the last financial year, South Australia's wage growth fell below the inflated cost of living, and only 20% of workers received a pay rise. The union says in the regional areas, cuts to wages have had drastic effects.
We know that if you're on the minimum wage, that it's becoming harder and harder to live, and you're becoming closer and closer to the poverty line.
SA unions have stopped off in Port Augusta as part of the regional Change the Rules campaign. They say 25% of Australians are casual workers and do not have the leverage to negotiate a pay rise with bigger companies. They want to see the laws changed so these workers are hired on a permanent basis.
People that are forced into insecure work have a right to permanency, have a right to security.
And they'll be taking their message to Canberra before the federal election next year.
It is a wage crisis, and that's why we need to change the rules to fix it.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
A damning new report has shown that more than 100,000 South Australians are accessing food relief every month, with those in regional areas more likely to go hungry. And food banks in the mid-north are experiencing a significant rise in the demand for their services.
More and more Australians are going hungry each day, and it is worse in regional areas. SA Food Bank have reported that people living outside of metropolitan areas are more than a third likely to require food assistance.
There's a lot of factors in our community in terms of unemployment, drug use, gambling.
The significant rise in the cost of living is also taking its toll on people who are struggling to simultaneously pay the bills and put food on the table. Port Pirie's Food Hub has been doing everything they can to get hungry locals to join their services.
You can access the Food Hub through a number of different services in the community, so people can come into our office and they'll have an appointment and we can arrange a cost-free membership. People in the country are less likely to seek help and are often afraid of being stigmatised by their tight-knit communities. Uniting Country are campaigning to change public perception.
There's a lot of shame and embarrassment goes along with people feeling as though they've failed either their family or themselves, and they quite often will want to, particularly country people, that we know they will quite often want to help someone else.
If you would like to donate food, contact Food Hub on 8633 8615. Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
The Royal Flying Doctor Service is the lifeline for regional and remote SA, and to help keep their planes flying to provide 24-hour emergency care, mining giant BHP has donated a whopping $300,000.
They're the planes that save the lives of those in regional and remote SA. For Port Lincoln resident Ruth Lindell, she doesn't know what she'd do without the service.
We've used it 4 times with our family, and it's been a wonderful help for us, and the fact that, you know, some of them mightn't have lived if we hadn't had it.
To ensure the RFDS can continue its vital services, mining giant BHP yesterday announced a renewed partnership.
The $300,000 that we've committed to over the next 3 years will go towards the general running costs.
Welcomed news for the Flying Doctor.
It certainly allows us to maintain our fleet in terms of turnover and renewal on a regular basis. The next 5 years, we've got $63 million worth of capital expenditure plan, and it will go towards supporting that program.
Regional auxiliary groups like the one in Port Lincoln also continue to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It'll be $250,000 in the last couple of years. It's so necessary, not just for the outback, but for the people here.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
Still to come tonight, one of Australia's most sought-after public speakers shares his inspiring story with audiences in the Mid-North. Welcome back. Councillor Tom Antonio has put his hat in the ring to become Mayor of Whyalla. The former acting mayor and state political candidate says keeping rates affordable will be his key priority.
A fourth-generation Whyalla boy, Tom Antonio has seen the Steel City go through highs and lows. He says the region is heading for exciting times.
Council needs good leadership. I understand what it needs to take with good leadership, and of course to work with all levels of government.
He served 3 terms on council and earlier this year ran for SA Best. Mr Antonio was also acting mayor for most of 2016, working with the Steelworks administrators Quarter Mentha. And that difficult period still resonates with him, promising to keep council rate rises to a minimum.
We have to spend wisely. We have to understand the needs and the wants of our community. And of course, rates should not increase more than CPI.
Mr Antonio says a united council is important for the community.
We must be bipartisan. We must work cohesively with every level of government.
Voters will have the final say, with ballots out next week before November's announcement. John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hills Country University Centre has smashed its goal of having 45 students using its facilities after 6 months of operation. The local manager says 108 uni students have registered at the centre.
Exceeding expectations.
It's quite impressive, the results that these students are getting.
The Far West Country University Centre has only been open for 6 months, but already has over 100 students on the books. The centre gives locals a chance to study uni courses from home rather than moving to the big city.
We have lots of students saying really good stuff about how the centre has impacted their academic results. We had a student who was about to drop out last semester and is now hitting HDs, so high distinctions and distinctions.
The centre has recently teamed up with Central Queensland University to offer an early childhood primary teaching degree in 2019. Ms Keenan says it's another career pathway locals have open to them.
The students are invested in the online learning, but they get some face-to-face teaching locally from a local tutor each week.
Ms Keenan says the centre is also working with a number of high school students. Patrick Ryanke, Southern Cross News.
Advancing Whyalla has opened the doors to its new community hub just in time for the group's annual Whyalla Pride Week celebrations.
From half a housing trust unit to half a square kilometre of space, Advancing Whyalla has a new base with a brand new community hub now operational. Based out of the historic Alex Ramsey Library, the group says community groups will be the winners.
It means those groups can advertise their services and it might help them recruit new members. It expands the services.
Mr Sitchler says the hub is here to serve Whyalla. Local clubs have the opportunity to put themselves on display with stalls available. There's also a meeting space available, with the group looking to also host more activities.
Everything from seminars, conferences, Tai Chi classes, yoga classes, you name it, we've got the space to put it in.
The move to a bigger space has come in handy. Work is underway on their annual Whyalla Pride Week celebrations. Beginning with Pride in the Park tomorrow, the focus is on celebrating the people and clubs that make Whyalla great.
That's the whole point. That's it in a nutshell, John. That's all about Pride Week. It's being proud of what we have here in Whyalla and recognising that fact.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
One of Australia's most sought-after public speakers, Michael Crossland, has captivated audiences in the mid-north. The extraordinary young man shared his story to inspire locals through hardship, while also raising money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
A trial that killed all except himself, sharing his words of wisdom with an audience in Jamestown Hall.
I think they will hear a lot about resilience and a lot about optimism. I've been fighting an incurable cancer of the central nervous system my entire life, and I've realised throughout my life that it's not the adversity in your life that defines you, it's how you deal with it.
For Damien Hunt, Michael's speeches have been life-changing. More determined than ever, he set out to bring Mr Crossland to Jamestown so that his community could also be inspired.
Michael's had a big impact on my life, and for the Royal Flying Doctor Committee, I just thought, well, how about we do something special for the community and raise a bit of money for the Flying Doctors. So.
Michael was more than happy to share his story after learning that Damien was part of the Royal Flying Doctors Service, a group who had recently saved the life of his newborn son during a medical emergency.
Obviously tonight we're supporting the Royal Flying Doctor, and without their support in my life over the last 12 months, massively, it would be a whole different outcome.
Michael's best-selling novel, Kids Don't Get Cancer, was up for sale at the event, with all proceeds going to the Royal Flying Doctors Service. Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
Stay with us after the break. Cricket's back in full swing and we'll have all the tips next. And after some hot and windy conditions, it's looking like a gorgeous weekend. I'll have all the weather details soon. Hello again. Well, cricket's back in full swing around the Gulf, and here's our local tipsters.
Yeah, g'day and welcome to round 2 of Port Augusta cricket. This week we see Central Augusta take on Corn at Etsa. This should be a good match, but I've got to lean towards last year's premiers Corn to beat Central Stirling. The other match sees West Augusta take on South Augusta at Chinnery Park. Again, this is going to be a very good match. I'm just going to lean towards South Augusta to beat Westies. Yeah, so there are my two winners, Corn and South Augusta.
Welcome to round 2 of Port Pirie cricket. This round starts with Solly North taking on Props at Memorial Oval on Saturday, starting at 10:30. Both sides started their seasons with wins in round 1. Props big winners over Southport, and Solly North getting over Wandera in a tight one. I'm tipping Props. On Sunday at Memorial, it's Wandera up against Southport with a starting time of 12:30. I'm tipping Wandera in this one.
Welcome back to Whyalla cricket. Season starts this weekend with Central and North having a grand final rematch at Memorial Oval on Saturday. Central will be looking to the old foes of Collison and Smith to lead them from the front, and North will be looking for bigger efforts from Lewis, Miller and Ashwin Srikanth. My tip, North just. On Sunday we'll have Rapina versus South. Rapina look to be the big improvers with lots of new recruits. Nathan Van Ackeren to lead from the front with the ball on the bat. My tip, Greg Feeby to make lots of runs and Rapina to win easily.
Welcome to this week's Port Lincoln Cricket Tips. Round 2 in Port Lincoln and Southern Air take on Charlton. This will be a great game of cricket. Southern Air up and about last week, smashing Todd River, and Charlton didn't do too well themselves, so I reckon they'll bounce back, but Southern Air too strong. Tasmans versus Todd River out at Centenary. Both teams coming off a loss last week. It's going to be a great game. I reckon Todd River might be just a bit too strong in this one. And in the final game, 2 of last week's winners, Waybacks versus Lincoln South. Tipping Lincoln South to go back-to-back this week.
Broken Hill District Cricket kicks off this weekend with the initial game of the Elders Cup 2020 match. Last year's premiers North take on Centrals. This will be a great pipe opener for the season. There'll be nothing much in the game. I'm tipping North. I think they're potentially looming as the new powerhouse in Broken Hill cricket. In the second game, West take on South. I'm tipping an upset in this game. I think South can kick off the season with a win, which would be the first time for probably around about 15 seasons for the Southerners. So very good game of cricket in both matches this week.
Now let's see what the weekend forecast has in store for us. Well, it was a hot and windy one around the Gulf today. Port Augusta and Port Pirie reaching a top of 35 degrees. Whyalla saw a max of 33. On the satellite, strong winds moving through parts of the Gulf, but low cloud over southeastern SA from a low over Bass Strait is not producing any rain. Clear skies elsewhere under a broad high pressure system. On the waters for your Saturday, southwesterly winds up to 20 knots, seas at 1.5 metres with a south-southwesterly swell, and sunrise will be at 6:34. But the good news is conditions are set to calm down for the weekend. Lovely weather forecast for your Saturday. Port Augusta, Woodnar and Broken Hill, 23 the top, with temps reaching the high teens to low 20s in other areas. A mostly sunny outlook for Sunday as well. Cleve warming up to 26 degrees, Woodnar 29. We could see a sprinkle of rain on Monday. Port Lincoln 25 the top, and that cloud cover is creeping in for Tuesday with temps cooling down too. Gorgeous weekend conditions in store here before temps ramp up on Monday. Whyalla 32, Port Augusta 35 the top, and some centres could see the odd shower, but it will cool right down for Tuesday. And sunny and warm over the weekend. Clare could see a bit of wind about on Sunday. Port Pirie warming up to 33 degrees on Monday, 31 the top for Broken Hill, and temps will drop for Tuesday as well. Cloudy in Clare, just 16 the top. And that's all from the team. Have a great weekend. Good night.